lesson in Adobe Illustrator. Today we're going to be making Mickey Mouse and Felix the cat. They are very similar. So what I did was I went online and I found some old pictures of Felix and Mickey. They've both gone through a number of iterations over the years. So you'll find different versions of Mickey or Felix depending on what year the character was drawn. So if ours doesn't come out exactly right, that's okay. It might end up looking like Mickey's demented cousin or whatever, and that's fine. As long as it's kind of in the family, it'll be okay. So I usually start out with the eyes. It just seems like a common place to start the drawing. I think if you could even start with the entire shape of the head and then work your way into the smaller objects. That might be actually a better way to go about it. But I'm going to stick with the eyes because I just feel like when you're drawing something, you kind of want to have something to focus on. And we'll have the eyes as our beginning here. You'll notice that Mickey's eyes are ellipses, so I'm going to draw one ellipse and then copy and paste it. They're tall ellipses and they're relatively close together. And maybe the space between the eyes is about equal to the distance from the width of one eye is probably the distance between the eyes is probably equal to the width of one eye. That's what I was trying to say there. Okay, so the eyes look like they're cut off by a little line on the bottom, and there's a couple ways to go about doing that. One, and that line I'm sure is a pointy line on the very ends. So you could actually take an ellipse and then draw another ellipse even wider than that one and have it just be a thin crescent outside of there. So this is the same way we made our crescent shapes earlier in the year. See how there's a shape that's stuck outside of that? That's the shape we want to end up having. So this is one way to do this. And for this type of drawing, I'm going to stick with mostly shapes rather than using lines. Although you could definitely use a line for this and then use the width tool. You could do that as well. It's up to you. But I'm just going to subtract one shape from the other, so I'm left with this nice crescent shape here, and I can put this up over Mickey's eyes. It looks like the bottom pieces get cut off. So what I'm going to do, and this is going to happen often in this drawing, is I'm going to copy and paste that, and I'm going to actually use this to kind of divide the eyes out. Okay, so I want to make sure this is centered. So I'm going to take the two eyes, group it first, so the eyes act like one object, and then center the line there. That did move a little bit, so that was actually worth doing. And then I'm just going to divide, and then select it, ungroup it, and then I'm going to get rid of the pieces I don't need. And if you happen to get rid of all this stuff, you have the other line to stick up in there. So it might be easier. The fewer shapes you have, the better off you might be. So I can just stick this right in here, and we can center that again. Oops, that was ungrouped because I ungrouped everything, so that's why we group it. Otherwise, you end up with Cyclops Mickey. Okay, and that's looking pretty good for the eyes. And let's see what we got here. Okay, so the nose is just underneath there, so that's also going to be a very simple thing to do. And on the nose, it looks like there is a little bit of some kind of glare shape there, and it looks curved on the top and bottom. So with Mickey, what I'm going to do is I'm again going to make a crescent shape. So to get the little glare piece on a nose, I'm going to use two circles like this, and I want the shape outside here to be the shape that I keep. But I'm also going to let's say I just want to use rectangles and cover up some of these other pieces like this. And what I could do is, since minus front takes away every top piece from the furthest back piece, I could just hit minus front like that. And now I can make this white, and we can stick this on Mickey's nose. Okay. Sometimes you'll see two little pieces of glare taken out of the eyes. It's not on that in this case, but you can subtract out a little piece from the eyes there. So far we have the nose, and I'm going to take the nose and the glare piece and group those two together. So now they get centered on Mickey's face. And actually, I'm going to move this down a little bit because it looks like there's more room there. Okay, so let's move on to the mouth. Mickey's mouth. Mickey Mouse's mouth. Mickey's mouth, the bottom part of the mouth looks like a pretty tall ellipse. It's a very kind of like pointy mouth. So I'm going to go with a tall ellipse there to make the bottom part of the mouth. And this might not be spot on, but then I'm going to take a wider ellipse. And again, we're making a crescent shape here. So you can see the piece out here. This is what's going to become the mouth eventually. And we might need to use a little bit of our white arrow tool or the direct selection tool to modify this when we're done, but let's just see how this looks here. So I'm going to align these, and then I'm going to subtract the top piece, and now we're starting to get a mouth. You'll notice on this particular character there is the line goes up, and these kind of like merge together and form a line to the corners. You can mess around with your direct selection tool to have this kind of taper in at a different angle. So you might have to play around with this a little bit to get that just right. But if you left the mouth the way we originally cut it, that could work as well. So you don't have to get too fine-tuned with that. The dimples that are on the mouth are also going to be the mouth shape. So you might as well copy and paste the actual mouth shape to make the dimples that are going to go on the ends of Mickey's mouth. So I can scale those down, bring those in. If you need to make these thin and narrow, small, whatever you need to do, you can do that. All right, so here we go. It's starting to look a little bit like Mickey. And I'm going to copy this, but you know what? I'm going to reflect it. So what I'm going to do, instead of using the rotate tool to rotate and then scale and all that stuff, I'm just going to click on reflect, which is in the same box as rotate. I'm going to double click on it, and if vertical is checked, I'm just going to hit copy. And what it did was it created a copy, and this is a good way, by the way, to make the Xbox logo. There you go. And we can stick this out over here. Now here's the time if you wanted to add a little bit of a line to the mouth to connect the mouth to the dimples. You could do that. So I'm going to line the dimples. I'm actually going to group them so that when I select all this stuff now, I can keep it centered nice and easy. So everything you make in a pair, you should group. If I need to draw a line here to connect this to the end of the mouth, you can, or you can make it a shape or something to get that to the end. You could do that, or you can just like touch that up later on. That's up to you how you want to do that. The kind of weird shape here, there's the black part of his face, and then there's the white part of Mickey's face. And they both share a circular bottom. So I'm going to draw a circle. And it's going to match up pretty close to the bottom of Mickey's face here. I'm just trying to, I'm watching the picture and I'm doing this all at the same time. So that's why I'm being a little bit deliberate about that. If half of this is a circle and it's like bent around down here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take white arrow and I'm just going to click on the top part. So you have to click away first, click on the top part, and then just bring this down like somewhere into the nose area down here. And you'll see now you're starting to make that shape. So let's send this to the back so we can see what we got. All right, that's starting to happen. Not too shabby. It probably needs to move up a little bit. And if I need to scale at this point, then I should probably hold the shift key while I scale. Okay, because you don't want to lose the fact that this is a circle. If I didn't hold shift key there, it's not going to be a circle anymore. All right, so I have this piece. There's two white ellipses that are going to go together to form the top part of Mickey's eyes, and they're actually pretty big. And when I get to this point here, I run into a little bit of an issue because I need to know how big Mickey's head is actually going to be. So I'm going to draw another circle here and just kind of give this, put this here as like a guide. So I'm going to send this to the back. That's eventually going to become black. So we're going to rotate this a little bit. And, most of the head is going to end up being white. There's only like these very little parts. I'm going to copy. Oh, actually, nope. We're going to reflect that. So again, I'm going to use the reflect tool. Make sure vertical is checked. Just hit copy. I could bring this over to the other side here. Make sure these are aligned. Put them together. Center it inside everything. So there's a lot of centering going here. Now I'm going to take this piece that we just made, and I'm going to shift click that hot doggy looking piece right there, and we're going to combine those together. Now this is on top of everything, so I need to send this backwards. So you're going to hit shift or command and the bracket directly next to the letter P. So I'm going to hit command or control and keep hitting this until it goes back. All right, that's the bracket key next to the letter P. Now I don't want to put it all the way behind this outer circle. That's going to become black with no stroke. And now you can really see that we're starting to make Mickey here. Now I have a little bit of too big of a nose, which is the story of my life anyway. And the eyes are probably a little too big too. So let's bring this down. All right, the nice thing about having align tools is that now that looks a little weird, right? But once I align this, it kind of comes back together. Okay. I might need to move these dimples up and change the way the smile looks. So I'm going to move the dimples up a little bit. And this piece right here is just way too big. So let's make this a lot smaller. And let's just see what happens when I recenter this all. All right, that's a little bit better. I might need to nudge that just up. There you go. All right, these ends of Mickey's mouth, I'm going to select one, and I'm going to shift-click the other. And I'm just going to hit up arrow until I get these to kind of touch or near that piece right there. Okay, like I said before, if you want to add in lines, you could. Okay, so I'm using the arrow keys on the keyboard to kind of nudge this point, if I can select it, that point right there into the middle of the dimple. Okay, I might be losing my symmetry there because I'm not exactly counting how many times I'm doing that. That's not too shabby. All right, the tongue. So Mickey's tongue and Felix's tongue is going to be the same way when we get to Felix. It's really, I'm going to use two circles, and then I'm going to actually use the mouth to create the shape of the bottom of the tongue. So I have a circle, and I'll make this red just so we know what we're making here. I'm going to copy and paste that. We have two of these together. I'm, of course, going to align these before I pathfinder them together. So now this is one kind of like peanut-looking shape. I'm going to take the mouth, copy and paste it. And I'm going to send this to the back because when I use the next pathfinder that I use, it'll retain the color of the topmost piece. So I did send that to back. Now you can see the tongue is going to be where these two pieces overlap. And I'm using the mouth to form the bottom shape of the tongue right there. So now I'm going to hit intersect. Okay, so that's the third pathfinder. And now I have a tongue to stick right there in Mickey's mouth. And that's looking pretty good so far. Not bad. And a couple little extra pieces here. One, the ears, Mickey's ears, right? So in this, usually they're, I think, perfectly round, but it seems like in this picture that these are a little more elliptical, and they actually look almost like you'd want to use rounded rectangle, but we're going to just kind of eyeball it with a big fat ellipse. They overlap that head a little bit. I'm going to again use reflect, and this time on reflect, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to actually pick the center of his head. I'm going to hold the option key. Okay, so I'm on the center of his head. I have the object selected. I'm in the reflect tool. I hold the option key. I click right in the middle of his head, and it's on vertical. And it says 90. I'm going to click copy, and now it's like perfectly onto the other side of his head. I'm going to take these three pieces, so both ears and his head, and unite them into one shape. Send it to the back. All right, last little piece that we're going to do is the piece that's on the chin here. So you can see there's a thin line that comes out and tucks in behind there. So I'm going to do this in a way of, it's a very kind of a cheap way of doing this. But I'm going to draw a circle. Actually, I'm going to draw an ellipse. And what I'm looking at is, I'm looking at where the sides of the ellipse are ending. And I'm going to hit D on the keyboard. I'm going to take white arrow and I'm going to click on the top point and just hit delete. When you delete a point like that, it's different than using pen minus, because pen minus will get rid of a point but keeps the path closed. This opens up the path. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of manipulate this shape a little bit. I'm going to select it with my black arrow. I'm going to kind of scale it a little bit. You might want to bring these handles up a touch to kind of have this, try to bring them up about the same amount. If you have your guides on, it'll help you out with that. And what I'm going to do is, I have this object selected, I hit Command, bracket next to P until it's behind the mouth but on top of the face. At the top of your screen, if you have your control bar out, or if you want to click on your stroke window, there's a thing in here called Profile. So you'll find it up here, and you'll find it in the stroke window. And the width profile I want is going to be this one that goes from thin to thick. And if I boost this up, the stroke up, you'll see now you have a thin to thick line that comes to points, and that will finish off my Mickey Mouse. Okay, there's a glare on the tongue in the picture, which you could probably do the same way as the glare on the nose. That's up to you. You might have to do a little modifications here to get it to look exactly like that, but that's not a bad Mickey. Not a bad Mickey at all. Okay, so good luck with that. I'm going to do a second video for Felix because this one probably ran a little too long.